All right, let's dive into one of the biggest plays ever written, Shakespeare's Hamlet. Now, we're not just going to look at it as a story. We're going to see that you can't really understand Hamlet, the character, or the play until you understand the incredibly anxious world it was born into. The key to everything happening on stage is actually happening off stage, in Shakespeare's own time.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get into the vibe of Shakespeare's England. Then, we'll look at the blockbuster movie genre of the 1600s called the revenge tragedy. We'll see how Hamlet seems to follow the recipe perfectly, at first. And then we'll get to the one huge, soul-crushing question that stops the whole thing cold and makes this play a masterpiece.
So, to really get what's going on in Hamlet's Denmark, we've got to start with Shakespeare's England. Because the paranoia and suspicion you see in the play, that wasn't just made up for the stage. For the audience in London, it felt disturbingly real. This line, it is so famous. But for the people watching this play for the first time, this wasn't just some spooky foreshadowing. No, this line would have hit them right where they lived. It was a perfect description of their own reality. See, that feeling of raw and anxiety, it started right at the very top. Queen Elizabeth I was getting old, and, this is the crucial part, she had no children, no heir. Nobody knew who was going to take over. So when the audience saw a messed up Danish court with a shady succession, that wasn't fantasy. It was a direct reflection of their own political paranoia. They could feel that rot themselves.
All this uncertainty created a culture of deep suspicion. I mean, the play is just full of people spying on each other, right? Polonius spies on his own son, Claudius spies on Hamlet, and that's because the world they were living in was full of spies and distrust. So when Hamlet says Denmark's a prison, the audience would have nodded along. They felt like they were being watched too.
So Shakespeare's writing for this really anxious audience, and what kind of story does he give them? He gives them the most popular, action-packed genre of the day, the revenge tragedy. To really appreciate how brilliant Hamlet is, you first have to know the rules it was supposed to be playing by. You should honestly think of these plays like modern blockbusters. A play called The Spanish Tragedy was basically the Star Wars of its time. It was a huge hit, and it created this formula that audiences absolutely loved and came to expect. It wasn't just a type of story, it was a checklist. You knew there'd be a ghost, you knew there'd be madness, and you knew for sure there was going to be a lot of blood.
So basically, the audience walked into the theater with this checklist in their minds. They were strapped in and ready for a wild, bloody ride. They knew the formula, and they were expecting Shakespeare to give them exactly that.
Now, let's switch over to Hamlet. At the beginning of the play, it seems like Shakespeare is following that blockbuster recipe to the letter. And yeah, at first, everything is going according to plan. Step 1, the horrible injustice. Check. The king is murdered. Step 2, the call to action from a ghost. Check. The ghost shows up and demands revenge. The audience would be leaning forward in their seats, waiting for the plotting to start. But this is the exact moment where Shakespeare just slams on the brakes. So why? Why does Hamlet wait? Why does he hesitate for so long? Well, it's not because he's just indecisive. The entire problem, the thing that grinds this whole revenge plot to a halt, is the ghost itself. And the problem with the ghost comes from the single biggest religious conflict of the time. This right here, this is the single most important question in the entire first half of the play. And for Shakespeare's audience, the answer to that question was not simple at all. It depended entirely on whether you were Catholic or Protestant. Okay, so here's the trap. Denmark, in the play, is a Protestant country. The ghost says it comes from Purgatory, but Purgatory is a Catholic idea. Protestants didn't believe in it. So Hamlet, who is an educated Protestant prince, is staring at a spirit that, according to his own religion, cannot exist. So what is it? Is it really his father's soul crying out for justice? Or could it be a demon from hell disguised as his dad to trick him into committing murder and damning his own soul for all eternity? I mean, talk about an impossible choice. And look, Hamlet says it himself. This isn't just us guessing. He voices this exact fear right here. His famous delay isn't cowardice. It's a completely logical, sane response to a situation that could literally cost him his immortal soul. He has to know the truth. So, let's put it all together. How does Shakespeare take this popular action movie recipe and turn it into something so much deeper, so much more psychological? This table really just lays it all out. Your standard revenge hero has an external problem.
How do I kill my enemy? But Hamlet's problem is entirely internal. How do I even know what's true? Can I trust what I'm seeing? The entire conflict moves from the outside world right into his own mind. In the end, Shakespeare isn't just using the revenge genre. He's taking it apart to see what makes it tick. He's asking a much deeper question. He's less interested in the actual act of revenge and way more interested in the psychological and spiritual price a person pays for even thinking about it. And that is the very question Shakespeare leaves us wrestling with. By setting his story in a world full of real-world fears, political paranoia, and religious doubt, he turns a simple, bloody action story into a timeless psychological tragedy. The real question isn't if he'll get revenge, but what it costs his soul to even try.